So I've been playing around with plans a lot today using SketchUp, which is like an online tool. You can build models from all the dimensions that you take, and actually you can come up with a really good visual model of when you're planning a construction or even just changing layout of a room. And for this, it's been really good. I mean, the main reason I used it was putting together the planning application, the change of use application, which I'm going to be sending off shortly. But once I finish those basic plans, which are really just showing that I'm gonna maybe put some chimneys coming out of the roof in the future. So I'll show you that. That's really the only visual change that I'll actually potentially ever need for the stable. So that just those two chimneys, which one of the roasters that I was looking at requires. The roaster that I've got now, or that I've ordered now, doesn't require any chimneys at all. So visually, for the stable and for the change of use, there really isn't anything happening. So it should be quite nice and easy. But as I was playing with the plans anyway, it's a really good chance to have a go with having a look at the layout properly, trying to think of everything that I might need to get going with the business. And obviously the primary thing, the main thing is the roaster. So I've matched the dimensions. It is basically just a rectangle box, the roaster. It's quite unusual compared to a lot of more traditional roasters. But the good thing about it is it does stand up right and it sort of stays out of the way. It doesn't have these chimneys coming out of here. These are just to sort of, really for the planning application, just to say maybe in the future I will have a roaster that requires this ducting. But otherwise I won't be having this ducting in my stable to start with. And the roaster literally just sits as a box, plugs in and recirculates the air, and it doesn't actually need any ventilation. So it's really cool. It's called a bellwether, and yeah, I'm really looking forward to getting going with that. And so in my plan, I've made space for 2 of those, and probably 3 actually. We'll see how it goes. I think there's space for 3 roasters, but it's whether or not I can actually cope with the amount of green coffee coming through, because obviously this isn't very much here. This is like 4 bags and probably need double or triple that in storage ready to go, for that to actually be worth it with 3 roasters. So this was my initial layout anyway, and thinking about racking, thinking about sort of production tables, a little sink, a desk, which this desk's probably way too big, and thinking about another person working here as well. So this layout potentially could work, but after quite a bit of playing around, I came up with what I thought was probably a better one. And also along the way, I thought of other things that I would need. So I've still got the roaster in the same place. I think that probably works the best because it's a nice flat wall and you can work around it. And then because the wall's slightly strange angle on the right hand side, I thought the table would probably be better to sort of walk around from there and have a bit of a production table, have a coffee making table for testing out sampling, and I've got my Cafe Logic sample roaster there. I've got a massive set of scales. I don't know if I need scales that big. I've got blue storage drums for roasted coffee, ready to be packaged. I've got a packaged sealing machine. I've got a smaller desk. I'm utilising my IKEA trestle table, which I currently have. In fact, I've got one at home. I've got one in the stable at the moment for woodworking, and they're super versatile. And to be honest, because SketchUp had a model for it, I thought, let's try and use that. And you can also lower and raise the height. So the main consideration really is the green coffee storage, and it's one thing I don't know how much I'm going to need at once. So, but it's likely that I'll need to get a pallet delivered at one time, and a pallet can have 10 bags on it. So I could just get a pallet wheeled in and sat there, and there is space for that. That's the pallet size. But I wouldn't want them all stacked on top of each other all the time, because I'd want to pull one out. It might be a different variety, and then obviously get whatever coffee I need to roast at the time to do 3, maybe 4 different roasts or 4 different varieties in a week. So it needs to be really accessible, and this is the really big challenge with this small space. And as you can see, it looks very, very packed, particularly if there are 2 people working there. But I think actually it works. The good thing is there's no ceiling in this drawing at the moment, but the ceiling is very tall, so it doesn't feel like a small space. But there are small dimensions. And I do have to have an electricity box in this corner for the new supply, and I don't yet know fully how big that's going to be, but it's going to be probably at least that big. And I'm going to need internet stuff as well there. I need to work out how to wire this, so really I don't want to have everything against the wall. I want to be able to operate a few electrical things out into the centre of the floor, so I need to speak to the electrician about how best to do that. But otherwise, I've sort of tried to think of everything. I won't have thought of everything, but I think having looked at this, it feels like I have a bit more of a vision for the space, and it means that I can make some sort of cleaner decisions based on remembering this. So yeah, it's pretty cool and it looks good, and you can really, really picture it. So it's worth the effort. A lot of effort learning how to put SketchUp together, but good skill for this sort of thing. And hopefully you know where I'm roughly going with it. So I spent the last 3 days, this is my third day in here doing the stable door. It's been a real challenge. There's been a lot to learn and probably getting quite a lot wrong. But I've been taking it slow and just trying not to rush and make mistakes. So I have a structure together. This is the sort of main frame, which has got some, I can't remember what they're called, but wooden joints so that it's physically connected. I'll then use screws as well to connect it all together properly, and then there'll be a Z frame going across the middle for extra strength, and then along the front, which is the same as it was originally, cladding, which sort of lock together tongue and groove boards. And then I'm going to put a bit of insulation in between, and then there's going to be a bit of plywood at the back, which sort of holds it all together. So that's all fairly straightforward. I do need to, this is the top, I need to cut a sort of arch shape which fits with the door frame, door opening, which is going to be tricky. I also need to cut like an angle off the bottom so it sits flush with the bottom door, which is going to be tricky. But I think the most tricky thing is going to be actually hanging the door on the existing hinges, long iron hinges, and just getting it straight. And to be honest, I've been sort of trying to work out how I might do that, but I think I'm going to have to get somebody along to help me with that. A, to hold it, and B, to just sort of try and shuffle and just make sure that we get the holes in the right place and that it all sits level. Because the worst thing possible to do is to get all the holes drilled in the door and get it set up on the hinges, and then it's like falling over at 45 degrees or whatever. So there's a few challenges left to go. And honestly, I didn't quite expect the stable door copying and recreating a simple wooden stable door would be quite so hard. But full respect to carpenters, joiners, anybody who makes this sort of thing, because it is technical and it is precise and it requires a lot of skill. But I've really enjoyed learning how to do a few things, and it is satisfying seeing something physical come from it. Part of me has been niggling away thinking this isn't the most useful use of my time, efficient use of my time. But actually, you know, it's really fun learning something. It's skills I can take forward, and I can create little things on a smaller scale maybe, or make a desk or repair things. I've got the tools now that I need to do that, and it's sort of why I wanted to start my own business, do my own thing, is to gain skills and have a bit of independence on this sort of thing. So yeah, fun, a little bit of progress, still could go wrong, and I need to remind myself if it goes wrong, just take it in the right spirit, and I'll know what to do next time. I may have wasted a bit of wood in the process. Hopefully, I just don't want to do that really. That's the main thing. I don't really want to waste a load of nice wood on a big, you know, a silly mistake of mine.
The Sydney Symphony Orchestra was conducted by Wilfred. Before we hear Florence Price on breakfast, let's get a roundup of today's headlines by Paul Guillory.
Sir Keir Starmer says the Israeli...
Thanks, Paul. And the weather. Northwestern Scotland will be cloudy with outbreaks of blustery heavy rain. Elsewhere in Scotland and Northern